What's up, everybody? We're on a podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the impending launch of GTA 6 yet again. Look, this is a pretty interesting article, and we've talked about this a lot before, but I really kind of want to focus in on almost one specific line that I read in this article. But what it's talking about, right, is games getting the heck out of the way of GTA 6. And it's one thing to speculate that it's going to happen, which I think a lot of us, including myself, right, we've talked about, we've done videos on before. Now, through these, anonymous tips and stuff, they're actually speaking to, like, the heads of companies, and the companies are outright telling them, yeah, we're getting out of the way. We're going to delay the game. We're going to push the game up faster than it really needs to come out, right? We're going to get it out there early, and we're just going to try to beat the thing. And, so to speculate is one thing. To hear it's going to happen, it's getting closer. So it is really, I find it to be really interesting. My main question has always been, how far do you move? And I want to stick, by the way, because it seems like I was right, so I want to kind of pat myself on the back. There was one specific line that talked about 3 weeks, and I had talked about that maybe you want to do 2 to 3 weeks before or after. So I was really, really close. I just, again, wanted to give myself a little bit of credit just for that prediction. When we talk about, right, GTA 6 comes out this day. Okay, well, how close is too close, right? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? And it seems like it's somewhere in that 3-week range. So let's read this article. We'll kind of just skim the important parts, I should say, right, from Video Games Chronicle. So they say, and they're talking to people that are in the know. Rockstar Games always sucks a lot of money and, more importantly, time out of the market. Reportedly said the boss of one of the world's biggest game publishers. We don't want to be anywhere near that. We're working up multiple different plans for our titles. Another person said, even without GTA, it's immensely difficult to find free time for new games to shine. Time is really scarce for us, not money. It's tough out there. A third AAA publisher based in Europe told TGB that its most significant concern is if GTA launches at the end of October or early November, giving it little space to maneuver its own titles. We don't want to launch just before or just after the game. If it arrives in late October, that means you either have to launch early, which a lot of people seem to be doing with recent glut of summer release dates, or go later, putting you up against Black Friday sales. And then they also spoke to 2 developers of top 10 live service games who talked about even their updates to those games. GTA 6 is basically a huge meteor, and we will just stay clear of the blast zone. We will nudge our releases back or forward 3 weeks to avoid it. Of course, the problem is everyone is going to do the same. So 3 to 4 weeks before or after GTA 6, you're going to get a load of games dropping content in what they believe will be the safe zone. So I just find all this to be super interesting. I mean, we've talked a lot about GTA on the channel. And I mean, look, like, the game might not even be like the most important game to like a lot of people out there. It's of course going to sell. It's of course going to be, probably the biggest game of our lifetime, at least so far. You can't deny that, but you can also maybe argue, right, like how important it is to an individual. But also, I guess you have to separate it, take a couple steps back and say, okay, well, what's it going to do to the industry? I mean, you can talk about the impact the game itself is going to make on the industry, which is important, hopefully, right? But then also there's this side of things. I just find this to be so super interesting, where it's like, what are people going to do? Now, the one comment of, 3 to 4 weeks, so, just to throw that out there again, right? But then they say, like, well, everybody's going to do that. And that, I think, is really where you're going to run into your problems, right? If you're them, and even us as consumers, right? Like, we're going into the fall, GTA 6 has its date, and 3 weeks before or 3 weeks after, you're probably going to get 3 to 5 big games. There's a lot of games that come out in the fall, and you think about any of these past years. Now, yes, some of them have been better in terms of quality over quantity, okay? Pretty much every September through November and even August has a lot of games, has that quantity, okay? But also generally has the quality, and that kind of, fluctuates depending on the year. But it always has a lot of big games. It just depends on how good they are or which big games you're talking about. I mean, so many of them fall in that. I mean, October normally is the biggest period, right? There's normally, you got 4-ish weeks, 4 release weeks, let's say, in October. you probably have between 4 to 7 big games that come out in October. So you're really looking at potentially all of those games, right, being moved, whether it's late November now or sometime like late August. So I guess if you're planning, okay, your wallet, and I need to do this too, because, this is coming off of the Switch 2 most likely, and, you're getting into the fall, you're getting, into a period of heavy releases. You're going to have to freaking brace yourself for impact for August and November. I think those are probably the two big ones where you're just going to see the games that would normally be spaced out. Okay, they're never spaced out perfectly. September, October, those games are all going to flood at us in August and November. And so just prepare yourself for that. I think it's going to be super interesting. We'll see how it goes, because I wonder how much. I mean, I know I keep saying it, but in an alternate universe, do we really need to give GTA that much space? And I wonder if there's going to be any games that say, screw it, we're just going to go for it. I feel like Crimson Desert could do it, right? They might not care, and that's cool, because I want to see what happens. If you release 2 weeks after, 2 weeks before, what's really going to happen to your game? I'm not saying that I'm not daring them to try it. I would like to see them try it, but I don't know if I would necessarily say a dare. But let's see what happens. And then on top of that, releasing your game so early or so late. Well, if you release it early, if you release it a month early, some of these games might come out in broken disasters, right? Imagine Battlefield 6 coming out a month early. And if that game is not well optimized, that game is screwed. It could release the same day as GTA. It would probably do better optimized than it would do unoptimized releasing earlier, right? So these are things that these studios, hopefully for the love of God, are thinking about, where, yeah, you want to get out a month early, but if your game's not ready, you're going to probably be in a worse situation than if you released it when you were going to, or if you delayed it, right? Delaying is probably always the right decision, in this case. And then also you have to compete with each other. So yeah, you beat GTA by 3-4 weeks, but now are you releasing with 2 other games that week? Because there's no way 3 games, we know how these things work, right? There is normally a game or two that suffers in those situations. So going to be interesting. It's going to be a really fascinating fall. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.